Now in Lesson 64 Part 2, we're talking about getting ready to go to the golf course. And the last piece we talked about consistency. Now consistency of movement comes from, as I said, good preparation, but to facilitate the body and to warm you up and to get you ready to go to the golf course, there's a few warm-up drills we should do. You see, when we're out in the practice ground, there's lots of golf balls, lots of opportunity. When we go to the golf course in a minute, we're going to be hitting a driver or a 3-wood. A few minutes later, it might be a 6-iron. Then we'll hit a small chip, followed by a couple of putts. Then you go straight to the next tee, out with the driver, longest club of the bag, then you hit a 3-wood. So on the golf course, it's much more difficult for us because we're playing from a different position, from a different place. We have minutes in between shots with a different club of a different length and different loft. So consistency on the golf course becomes more difficult. And lots of people think that consistency comes from a grooved swing. And it's a dangerous thought because you've got 13 long clubs in the bag of different lengths. You cannot have a groove that works for every club. What you must have is a shoulder turn that works for every club. So standing in front of you, the camera, if I take my feet golfing distance apart, a bit of knee flex and stand up with good posture, if I put the club across my shoulders and then turn to you 90 degrees and back through 180, this is a great way of warming up before you play. Stretching back and stretching through. You can then incline forward as though you were looking at a golf ball, and I can turn my left shoulder under my throat beyond the golf ball. You can see I can get the club almost over my right shoe, and then coming through, get my right shoulder almost over my left shoe. So that's the biggest thing. If you get the shoulder turning early, you're going to start the round more proficiently with good timing. But the power that we create in the backswing through the shoulder turn comes out primarily through the hands. Now there's lots of teaching on starting the downswing with the hips and the legs, and I understand all that. But before we start talking about the leg action, which I think is pretty instinctive, it's important to understand that our hand action is what converts the power of the backswing into the shot that we're going to hit. So one of the things that I like to do just at the start of a practice session, just with an 8-iron or a wedge, is just hit little one-handed shots. Okay? As though golf for a racket sport, you're just warming up. Like in tennis, you'd knock up to get your eye in, and I can just hit little shots and try and find a sweetly timed one. And if you're a bit stiff, or if you've been in the car for half an hour, this is a great way of getting your hand action going. And you can see that when I time it, the ball curves from right to left. Now again, in warming up to go to the golf course, we're actually trying to be creative. What tends to happen on the golf course is you go back hurriedly, you come in, the face is open, and you get a slap out to the right. That's the most common thing. So if you can start a round and early on get your shoulders turning and your hands releasing, then the engine gets warmed up and you're going to have a better performance earlier. For some of us that get to the golf course late and don't hit any shots, have practice swings, don't be surprised, it takes them 6 or 7 holes to warm up. And by that time it's probably too late. They've warmed up for the back 9, but not for the front 9. And if you think about a high handicap golfer, he may hit 30 long shots in the front 9, and that's his warm-up. But if he'd had 20 minutes beforehand to do those 30 shots, he's gone to the first tee with a much better chance of finding the ball. So once I hit a few shots with one hand, I'll just hit a few shots with 2 hands. Small shot, just looking for quiet shoulder turn and creative hands. And I'm just feeling my way in through my routine, consistency, a little bit of a shoulder turn, and then 2 hands. And to be candid, I hit that really quite badly and quite heavily. I wouldn't want that on the golf course, so I'm not going to go to the first tee with that feeling in my muscles and in my mind. I better hit another one, and this time catch it a little bit more sweetly. So here we go. Prepare, coil. Much better. And I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but the shot that was sweet was right over the white flag, which is my target. In warming up the body and the hands, I'm preparing to go to the golf course and make a good pass at the first tee shot that I hit. Now one of the things you must recognise that for everybody, the first tee has its own pressures and tensions, particularly if there's a few people watching you. And what happens in that situation is that we get tense and our breathing rate changes and we don't breathe deeply. So it's important to breathe deeply, to stay relaxed, because on the pressure of the first tee, which we all feel, you need to stay supple and not get tense. Because the moment you get tense, if your muscles get tight, then a tense muscle is a slow muscle and a disobedient muscle. We need the muscle tone to be comfortable and oily and fluid. Okay? So I'm rehearsing for that. And now I'm building the swing up and giving myself a full backswing and hopefully a full release. I load the shoulder, I coil, and I release. Now my backswing was probably 10 out of 10, and I made a complete pig's ear of the downswing. Why? Not because my swing was inconsistent, but because my timing was. I mistimed the shot. Okay? People often wonder, say, Luther, why did I hit that shot? And the fact is, you missed it. We're not machines. We just hit bad shots because we mistime it. Okay, so I go again, deep breath. This time determined to load the shoulder. Much better shot, but still, for my liking, a little bit heavier than I would want it. So, imagine on the golf course, those two shots. First shot's in the semi-rough, second shot's in the bunker. If I can just get some timing onto it, I'm going to start to hit the target. There you go. So, recognise that from a tournament player to a novice, the first tee can be a terrifying place. You've got to stick to your routine, through your pre-shot routine, load the body and release the hands. What makes a golf line is lack of creativity. It's a steer, it's a mistime, it's a tension, it's a suppression. What we're trying to do on the first tee is be creative. We're trying to generate power in the backswing and release that power through the hands. And you've got to be warmed up and mentally ready to do it. If you go there cold, it's hard to find your timing on the first tee.